Nationally, the focus goes away from the Cardinals, and people are just going to forget about them. But locally, we can finally start to kind of look at an actual game and an actual matchup with an actual team. Now, we don't know who's actually starting a quarterback, but we can go into that. So we were talking about this before the show. Like, what are some of your – we're going to get into bigger storylines for the whole season later on in the week.
Right.
But for right now, as we're just a few days away from opening kickoff of week one, what are some of your bigger storylines for the Cardinals this week going into this Washington game?
Man, I just love it. I really do, honestly, because as an NFL analyst, ladies and gentlemen, I sit here and I think of the game of football. And I think of the Arizona Cardinals and I think of the Washington Commanders and going on the road, of course, and playing the Commandos.
This is amazing because I just, sorry not to cut you off, but I have three, and you're not going to have any of them. And that's which is perfect.
You
I'd rather
have three what?
Just three storylines for this week.
Great.
So you're going to rattle off some, and they're not going to be the same.
No, number three, numero uno. I can't stand that guy's voice. Anyways,
that's recent.
When I think of the Commanders right now, I don't think of Sam Howell. I don't. Okay, Sam Howell, of course, their young, second-year, inexperienced quarterback who was also drafted in the 5th round.
He was.
Okay? I don't think of Sam Howell. I don't think of Terry McLaurin, ladies and gentlemen. And who knows? That toe issue, we don't know if McLaurin's going to play
You're
right
hedging
now.
on one of my storylines.
Okay, good. It's really the defensive line that I focus on for the Commanders. The defensive line, because they have probably the best interior defensive line pass rush, I think, maybe in the game. And the reason why I say that, I know Aaron Donald, for the most part, lines up as a 3 technique and rushes the passer, of course. I'm not talking about one. I'm talking about two, a combination. When you think of Jonathan Allen and you think of Daron Payne, those two defensive tackles that the Commanders have, they are excellent in terms of not only defending the run, but also, of course, getting after the quarterback and getting pressure. And then you throw in Chase Young.
No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. But there's a lot of things going on with Chase Young right now, and we'll talk about that. But to me, Montez Sweat, it's that defensive line. It's going to be the defensive line of the Commanders against the Arizona Cardinals offensive line. And whether or not that offensive line can run the ball effectively enough, come off the ball with a dark heart, some bloody knuckles, and remove somebody against their will from the line of scrimmage, can you do that? And give James Conner a crevice, a crack, a crease, anything. Can you give him a little bit of daylight to allow him to run the ball and cram it vertical? That, to me, is where this game lies for the Arizona Cardinals. If they can't do that, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, and we may be a little concerned. I mean, the good part about this is now we get to see it. There's no more speculating, on paper, this team doesn't look as good as this team or this or that. We're going to see actual football here in just a couple days. I'll run through my biggest storylines going this week real quick. Who's starting at quarterback? Because that's the obvious one. And
okay.
I'm assuming it's...
Yeah, right.
I don't even know who I'm assuming, so I guess I'm not really assuming. I kind of thought it would be Josh Dobbs, but we don't know yet. I'm assuming they know. You touched on Terry McLaurin might not be able to play. Chase Young might not be able to play. But the other one, Wolf, is this is the first time now we're going to see this culture that they've been building tested, right? Every game, it gets tested. Now, some more so than others. If you go out there and win, it's only helping. But everything they've been preaching and the buy-in that they have gotten, it seems like from everybody on this team, and that obviously that was by design, it's going to get tested on Sunday for 60 minutes of football. And if you lose, it's going to be tested a little bit more beyond that. If you win, that's a real nice thing to point to when you say, here's all these new policies and ideas and philosophies we're implementing.
Right.
And if you weren't sure if we totally were on board, we just beat Washington in Washington.
Yeah. No,
that would help.
Those are three very good storylines. That is well done by you.
The NFL, man, there's always storylines.
I know. And, with so many fans out there, you think of the storylines. And that's great. I've got no issue with that. unless you're an NFL analyst. And then you sit there and you look at the scheme and the matchup. This is what is, again, the defensive line is the tip of the spear for the Commanders in this game. You've heard me talk about the offensive line and how important it is for the Arizona Cardinals to have an offensive line that allows them to run the football, because it will set off a chain reaction in which, if in fact the Cardinals can run the football, they can be in games. And if they can't run the football, the opposite of a chain reaction is going to happen, where nothing happens from that point forward, in my opinion. It just, I could be dead wrong on all of this, but I think the Cardinals need to be able to run the ball offensively, to use play action. And that will help any quarterback that is going to be in there, whether it's Josh Dobbs. Did I say that correctly, Mel? Josh Dobbs, of course.
Not Joshua.
Not Joshua.
Not Joshua.
Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs.
Well, we actually say his name. Or Clayton Tune. It's got to be a situation where the Cardinals' offensive line plays the best of any position room on the team. If you tell me they play the best, I'll tell you the Cardinals have a chance to surprise people. And again, what do I mean by that? Well, if you thought they were going to be 1-16, maybe a surprise would be 4-13.
Yeah. Look, you know my philosophy on this season. I would always prefer wins, but I'm looking for players that you can watch and say, that guy's here for a while.
Right.
You're building around this guy. I mean, you want to go big picture. To me, one of the very biggest storylines this season, what do those draft picks do? What are these rookies? What is Monty Austin-Fort's first ever draft class with the Cardinals? What does it do? Because we have seen them come in and say past drafts basically don't matter. We're going to clear some of these guys out, and I'm guessing they may clear more out before the end of the season, or certainly into next offseason. But what does their first draft class look like? I'm assuming, like, okay, of 9 picks, what would be a great number if you hit on 5 of them?
A great number? Yeah, 5.
Okay.
I would say the majority.
Okay, well, I mean, it sounds good, although they haven't played a game yet. It sounds good on Paris Johnson Jr. and Michael Wilson. Keitrell Clark, that's encouraging. B.J. Ojulari, I mean, he's kind of an unknown, but he was a high second-round pick. So right there, you're hoping you hit on those 4, and if you could hit on one of the other ones. And the other guys, if you hit on those 4, the other guys don't need to be Pro Bowlers. They just need to be consistent players for your team. That, to me, is one of the biggest storylines with this team this season, and obviously it gets started here on Sunday.